Good afternoon and welcome to a sweltering Sabi Sands game reserve on this sunset safari. My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Sebastian on camera and we've had a very busy day today out here in the African bush. Now remember, this is a completely live feed, so this is happening right now, this very moment. And not only are we live, but we are interactive. So we would love to get questions from you. There are various different ways you can get your questions through to us. One of the easiest ways is to use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Otherwise, if you're watching on one of the other feeds, just pop a question in the messaging section below your feed. Now, as I said, it's been a busy day. So we have had Hosana this morning around that elephant carcass. For those of you who might have missed or brand new, a male elephant was killed by another male elephant a few days ago, and there's been lots of action around there. Now, it is very unusual to get an opportunity like that. So what we have done now is pretty much straight after drive today, Tristan, myself and Conrad gathered a whole bunch of equipment and we headed out, and we've managed to mount a camera at that elephant carcass so we can keep a 24-hour vigil on it even while we're not at drive. So that's going to be very exciting. There'll be more information about that coming later, so just be ready. It's very exciting. So we just managed to get it set up just before the end of drive, so hopefully it's all going to be sorted very, very shortly. In the meantime, I'm going to go see if I can find the Nkuhuma Pride of lions that were around this area. There was also a herd of buffalo close by, so maybe we might have some lion buffalo action. But in the meantime, across to Madam McCurdy.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Sunset Safari. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and Craig is on camera. And you can see we are on Triple M at the moment, and Craig is holding the camera for dear life. The reason why we popped out onto Triple M this afternoon is because Shidulu, a young female leopard, was supposedly making her way in this direction. So we're looking, because I don't think Brent managed to find her as he charged on off in the final minutes of the sunrise safari. And I don't know if it looks like they've actually come and graded the road slightly, not back there, but the sand looks quite nice and soft here and clean. So hopefully it hasn't wiped away any tracks. Also don't know when they would have done it. My goodness, this is a terrible road. So we're just going to have a quick little look around here, and then I have absolutely no idea what else we'll have in store for you a bit later. We'll just let the animals come to us. Hopefully a couple of herds of elephants passing on by. Maybe we'll pop past Chitwa Dam to have a little look around. But I'm not so sure just yet. We shall see. I thought we'd just check all these roads and have a little look around before we sort of make any major decisions. So that's the plan. Right, off you go across to the final member of our wonderful team, and that's of course Tristan. I think he could be on his way to that elephant.
We are on our way to the carcass, slowly but surely, but for now I just wanted to check one little spot before we got there in case our young Prince Hosana was hanging about. Now, as Taylor mentioned, my name is Tristan. On camera I've got Dave, and as I said, we are checking one little spot. And why we're checking this area is because it's a little mud wallow and that I've seen Hosana at many, many times. He normally likes this little mud wallow, and I know that he was left south of this mud wallow moving in this direction. So that's why I just thought I'd just come and check here before we go anywhere else to the carcass or anything like that. I've spent most of the day at that carcass with Brent, and there was no sign of him there. So I don't know where he is right now. I'm going to try and get an update as to the exact last position that he was left, and then we'll try and kind of figure out where he's gone from there. But either way, it will be a good afternoon. Hopefully we'll get some action at the carcass a little bit later. I don't think there'll be too much now, but maybe this evening we'll get something as well. Now, don't forget, we want to hear from all of you, and I want to be able to answer as many questions as you may have. So hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or YouTube chat. Good. Let's start heading southwards then. There seems to be nothing at the pan itself. I just check the shady little spots. You know, it's an area where Hosana sometimes get into these little thickets and he just lies there and you don't even know he's there because he's so relaxed. You kind of just drive right past him. He doesn't really put up his head. So it's always important just to double check as you drive along all the shady little thickets when you drive close to water, because he likes to lie fairly near the water holes. We see him a lot at Chitwa, Sam's treehouse. He seems to be a waterhole cat, so it's a good place to kind of look for him and just check out if he is anywhere near there. Now, I believe that I'm having a few issues technically, and so before they get onto us properly, let's send you back across to Brent. I think he's going to be following up on the Nkuhumas, and maybe he's had some luck.
Yes, well, we've checked where they were last sleeping this morning, and unfortunately there's no sign of them. I don't think they've moved off too far. Now, this morning I just wanted to have a quick look to see if there's any tracks crossing the road here. We also had vultures dropping on the opposite side, so they might have caught a baby buffalo. And Tristan seems to think there were also male lion tracks, so maybe the Birminghams chased them off that male buffalo. So let's go have a look. So just in here is where the lions were this morning. So a hot day like today, they're likely to find a nice cool thicket to go hide in from the beating African sun. Or a nice big marula tree to snooze under. So yes, Tristan, Conrad and myself spent most of the day around a very smelly elephant carcass. Now the quote of the day still has to belong to Conrad, so we stopped by Inga's where Tristan and I stay to collect some water and other stuff like that, and Conrad came to me with a dishcloth. Now you can see where the buffalo were running here, and see how the grass is flattened. So Conrad came up to me with a dishcloth asking me if I had any deodorant, because he wanted to spray deodorant on the cloth to wrap around his face while we were working around the elephant carcass. Tristan and I, of course, laughed and refused to let him put a dishcloth on. We said, well, there they are. I thought I saw a lion ear flick in the... Yes, there they are. I thought I saw a lion ear flick earlier, and that's when I stopped and I saw where the buffalo had been running. Conrad's trying to say I don't have any deodorant, which is a complete lie. I have lots of deodorant, but I'm not wasting it on a dishcloth to stop the smell of a putrefying elephant. Now, this is the first time I've seen the Nkuhumas in about a year. So it's been a long time since I've seen them last. And they're looking quite lazy. And, of course, to prove me wrong, they were not in the shade of a thicket, nor were they in the shade of a marula. They were in the shade of a knobthorn and a combretum. There we go. So I just want to see how hungry they are. I don't think they're going to move too much during the afternoon safari, but I wanted to see how hungry they are, and say, are buffalo not too far away? And we all know how the Nkuhuma Pride likes a bit of prime buffalo steak. It is definitely their favorite food. Sure, is that a wound on her nose? Girls have been in the wars. Or is that just a big tick? It's a big tick. Now, they don't look completely gorged. However, they don't look starved either. So somewhere in between. So it might be worth our while playing a bit of patience game. See, that little one doesn't look that well fed. And you see, especially with the turnover, you don't have that bulging tummy. Now, how many can I see here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How many in the Nkuhuma Pride now, Seb?
I'm not sure. I think it's 9 in a cab or 10
What?
in a cab.
So why don't you guys let me know, because I've been gone for so long, how many lions are left in the Nkuhuma Pride? You can do that by using that hashtag Safari Live. Please let me know how many lions are left in the Nkuhuma Pride. Now, I've been gone since, well, this time last year. So almost a year exactly since I last saw these lions. Yeah, the sun, yeah, they could definitely eat. They could definitely eat. Now, this little one's moving into the shade, as I'm sure a few more of them will be doing as the day progresses. I'm just going to move around now to try and get a slightly better view. Now, when it comes to seeing lions do incredible things, a little bit of luck is needed, but more than luck, patience is needed. So sometimes you've got to sit with flat cats for extraordinary long periods of time, but it's generally always worthwhile if they're hungry enough. And let's have a look. No signs of any males with them. Now I'll be able to do a better head count. I see, there was one I didn't even see there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Hello, Amber Eyes. It's been a while. Okay, so there we go. So we've only got 11 here that I can see at the moment. And from what I'm hearing, we should have 12, including the little cub. So there is a possibility that that run-in with the Evoker Pride might have not done well for that little cub. Oh, Amber Eyes, you still have the 1,000-yard stare down. It goes straight through you. She is my favorite of the lionesses. Very pretty girl. Looking a little bit older than the last time I saw her. Oh, there's another adult lioness up. Now she's looking quite hungry. Yes, very hungry in fact. And as I said, the buffalo were not close far. So I said some of the little ones looked okay. Oh, she's got a wound in her right eye. You see that, Seb? Oh, I think, oh, and that wound on the back. Oh, I have seen pictures of it, but I haven't seen these lions for so long. They are looking a little bit bedraggled compared to when I was last with them. They are very hungry, some of these girls. You can see there's the young male. I think if I remember correctly, he's the only young male. Wow, these girls are hungry. Oh, look at them. They're coming. Actually, some of them have come closer to me to lie down. Oh, all flat cats again. Now, of course, there's a huge bounty of meat not too far away in that elephant carcass. And there is a possibility that the Nkuhumas might go there, Tina. But I think the reason they walked past it and avoided it last night is the fact that that carcass is sort of a beacon. If any of the evoker males or come a bit closer to this area, they will see all those vultures and possibly hear the hyenas squabbling. And they don't want to be caught again by the evokers like they were caught on the buffalo kill not so long ago. The young male doing a little bit of preening, deticking. Shame they are looking definitely a bit worse for wear, the Pride. Oh, dearie me. As I said, I've been gone for a while. And I'm trying to remember which litter Cenac that young male was born into. I'm not actually unsure how old he is now, but looking at him, he needs to stand up a bit, but I'd say he's probably a year... He should be, no, a year and a half, if I remember correctly. He should be about a year and a half. Yeah, July 2016, so just under a year and a half. No, a year and a half. Getting confused. Now, the Pride is such a wonderful system that hunts together, and even young males, Ali, will play an important part in the hunting. And anywhere from about 2 to 2.5, they can become quite a useful member in the hunting team, specifically when they start hunting big animals, hippo, buffalo and giraffe, as a 2.5, 3-year-old male lion is already much stronger than the adult lionesses. He's still a little bit small to be too useful, but you'll probably find if the ladies have caught a buffalo, he might aid in pulling it down or making a nuisance of himself. You never know which. Sorry about that, just having a quick drink of water. It's very hot, and unfortunately it seems like you're stuck with me because Tristan and Taylor are experiencing problems, gremlins, all those horrible things, so hopefully they will be up and running as soon as possible. Till then, who can complain? We've got a carpet of lions within a few feet of us, looking quite relaxed. Now, as I said, I wanted to see how hungry they are, and hungry they are. So that means they are a good potential for later on this evening as it gets cooler. Now, you guys are going to have to help me out to answer some of these questions. As I say, I've been gone for so long. Willow, I'm not sure how old the cub was if it has been killed. And depending on the age of the cub is the significance of the fact that she stopped searching for it. So why don't you guys help me out? Hashtag Safari Live. How old was the youngest member of the Nkuhumas? Because that would have been born while I was in Kenya. So I'm not 100% sure how old it should be or is. So a lot of it depends on the age. So I can give you both answers and we'll find out which one's correct when we find out how old that cub is, Willow. So with an older cub, the fact that she's not calling isn't as significant. It might just be lost and it might still be searching for the rest of the pride. With a younger cub, if she has stopped calling, it's likely that she's accepted that it's dead, which is going to create a very interesting conundrum if that cub has been killed. Because even though a lot of the young lionesses and the one male lion in the Nkuhumas are potentially in big trouble from the evoker, if that female comes into estrus, and the Birminghams aren't around, there is a possibility she might sneak off to mate with the evokers, and so ensuring her safety and the safety of her possible cubs. Now, this is always a very fascinating time with lions, while you've got potential changing of the guards with the males, because some of the studies have shown that what lionesses will do, now that she's lost the cub, she will come into a false estrus, but the males will be convinced it's an estrus. She will mate with the males, however, she will not conceive until the second estrus comes round, and by that stage, those males, if they're still around, they're considered as viable sires to her potential offspring. And if they're not still around, there's another set of males. There might even be another false estrus. So it's a way that lionesses are able to protect their litters to a degree, with new males coming in, because the Mvokers might come in and then all of a sudden the Birminghams might come back quickly and chase them off again. So it's a very interesting how nature helps sort itself out. Oh, look at those toofies. I like young male lions. They always look so silly. They're so really awkward and clumsy. Okay, thank you very much, Giraffe Girl. 7 months old. So not calling isn't as significant as if it was younger. It might still be alive, wandering around by itself, but unfortunately, it's so difficult to say. I mean, we weren't able to get to the area where they were caught on the Carcass. And I can just tell you that there were just lion tracks on almost every road on Djuma that morning after. So there is a possibility she might have escaped and is trying to reconnect with the rest of the pride. Of course, if that is the case, the longer she is away from the rest of the pride, the more chance there is that she is not going to survive. However, the more likely scenario is that she probably got caught somewhere close to that buffalo carcass by the evokers and was either killed there or maybe died later of her injuries. So, unfortunately, life of a lion is a tough one. But in the meantime, one of the best and most productive spots with one of the most excited people I know is Chitwa Dam combined with Taylor McCurdy.
Aww. Shucks, Brent, you shouldn't have. So we've just coming up to Chitwa Dam. I don't know if we're going to spend too much time here. All the hippos are very far away, so we will come back a little bit later. But what I spotted on the other side of the dam, we're going to look at the elephant wire, however. There's a bushbuck and a little one, which is quite nice. Antelope species we don't always get the best view of. Hello, you two. As they're typically quite shy creatures. However, saying that, they're shy out in the middle of nowhere, in the wild. But put a lodge up, for some reason they become the most relaxed. And we've got a couple that hang around camp and plague us and eat our plants. They always do that. Remember last year they weren't my friends. I wasn't actually talking to them. I refused to put them on camera. I refused to acknowledge their existence. Them and their nyala. Always, always, always eating all the plants in camp. But there they go, back towards the lodge. They just came down for a drink. That's very nice to see. I think they're still having a little drink in that little pan. So again, we just at Chitwa Lodge now. So there is an elephant wire around the camp. That's what you are looking at. And that's just to stop things like elephants from coming through, and I suppose a giraffe. It would probably stop a giraffe from getting through too. Otherwise, hippos, buffalo, quite easily sneak under the fence along with the leopards, lions and hyenas. Nothing's going to stop them. And, well, this is the last spot we saw Tingana, and I wonder where he is, because nobody seems to have found him. We did have his tracks that went sort of south from here, and we suspect he crossed off our traverse, but I haven't heard anything since then. So we're going to go and examine some areas, I think. And then what we'll do is we'll come to Chitwa a little bit later when it cools down slightly. And then I imagine that all the hippos will start moving to a spot where it's a little bit easier to see them. They're so far out into the middle, it's not very nice. We can also have a scratch around for Kachava. I think that will be one of the many plans. No, I actually said to you, I don't really have any plans today. Right, so we'll keep heading on around here and scratching and seeing what we can find. Or if you go back to Brent, who's got some rather relaxed lions.
Well, the little boy, well, we're looking at a paw now, but the little boy is up and down and all around. Now, the lions have slowly moved closer and closer to us because it is very hot today, so I wanted to sit in the shade as well. So as the sun has come, I'm getting this carpet of lions moving closer and closer to the vehicle, which is always a wonderful experience. Okay, now, if any of you have a little cat at home, will know it's got a very rough tongue. And just like a lion, Charlie, except a lion's tongue is like sandpaper. So it can sort of remove hair and skin from other animals. Now, what Charlie is saying, well, then why don't they rip each other's skin off? Hello, boy. He's just coming right up to us, and he's going to flop. And, well, Charlie, lions, even though it doesn't look like it, their skin, their coat of skin can be quite thick, and they probably don't lick each other with the same vigor. They're not putting as much pressure, and that's why it doesn't sort of work and remove everything. Now, pretty much like sandpaper, if you don't push as hard, it's not as abrasive. You can see the little stable flies are already starting to take their toll on that young male lion's ears, biting off the tips, causing those raggedy edges. Now, male lions are quite interesting, and their coalition and pride structure differs all over Africa depending on where you are. So, Ron, in this situation, there are actually 4 male lions that are part of this pride, and this is not their only pride. They have the Nkuhumas, Torchwoods, Sticks. I'm not sure now about Salalas and another pride. So they've got at least 5 prides that they will move between, mating with the females when they're in estrus, patrolling the boundaries. So it's not unusual for the pride males not to be with a pride. They could be with another pride, and they could be off invading males. So it's not that unusual to find a pride of lions without any big males. Here we go, yawning. No little girl. And these lions look quite ragged at the moment, like they've been running up and down, and they have, shame, they're so hungry. Oh, there's a stick in there, silly. But you can see how tough a lion is. That didn't bother her at all. Well, of course, it's going to be very interesting to see if these lions notice the vultures that are falling out of the sky towards Tristan.
Well, Brent, I'm pretty sure the lions would have noticed the vultures at some point because they're not that far away, but except that their tracks came right past this carcass last night, so they must have known that this elephant is around, and I just don't think they really want a stinky elephant. They're rather going after fresh buffalo that they can try and hunt and take. Now, you can see that the vultures have come in en masse. There are vultures everywhere. Every single tree is laden with vultures this afternoon, which is a big change from when I was here yesterday afternoon. Oh, what's that? Hang on. Maybe this might be an Egyptian vulture. Just 2 seconds, because there's a bird that's flying in. Now, there's hooded vultures and Egyptian vulture look very similar at this phase, but they get a very deep forked tail. Now, it's that bird that's just landed, Dave. Now, I want to just quickly see. No, hooded vulture for now. So the Egyptian vulture looks very similar to that. It's got a very similar look to it, and it has a big diamond-shaped tail. And there is one that is flying around the Kruger at the moment, and Brent and I have this thing that we have the feeling that one of this Egyptian vulture is going to arrive at this carcass, and we're both kind of betting who's going to see it first, and I'm sure that somebody's going to get it right at some point. I feel like it's good vibes, and maybe we'll get lucky. And when you get thousands or hundreds of vultures like we've got now, you'll have a situation where maybe, just maybe, that Egyptian vulture makes an appearance, which would be really cool. Now, I believe Brent is fist pumping into the air that I didn't get to see it because, like I say, there's a bit of a competition between him and I about this because we both have a feeling that it's going to come, and it's just a matter of who sees it first, if it does. So we're having a bit of a kind of go at each other about it. But Brent and I have spent the entire day at this carcass, and we have set up a camera, as Brent said earlier, that we're going to try and get to you guys as soon as possible. So we will be going live with a camera at some point so that you can watch what goes on at this carcass 24 hours a day, which is very, very cool. Now, at this point, I want to try and see if any of you can actually spot where we've done it. So this is the tree, and we have set up a whole situation with all of it, and we tried our very, very best to try and hide it as much as possible so that nobody could really pick up what was going on, and that it's not as obvious, because obviously there are guests that come into the sighting, and we don't want to sort of disrupt their photos and things like that. And so if you look at the marula tree, straight up into the center of the marula tree, up a little bit further, there we go. So there is a little radio receiver that goes to our mast. It then comes down the tree, the cable goes down, and then it cuts at a 90-degree angle to the left, following the tree line, across there, then down into the trees, and then down a little bit further, and there you can see a little white spot of the camera to the right a little bit. There it is. And so there's the little camera that is in the tree itself that we've camouflaged as best we can so that people don't really know what's going on. And that will hopefully bring live pictures of an elephant carcass to all of you at some point soon. Now, unfortunately, we're not ready to go live just yet. We just installed all the hardware. Now it's time just to get everything sorted out, and we will let you know as soon as it is available and is able to go live. So hopefully you guys will enjoy all of that. But anyway, that's been the story of our day. So I'm actually, funny enough, driven into the sighting, and there's this waft of dead elephants, but it's not really worrying me anymore. After spending 3 or almost 4 hours at this elephant during the course of today, it hasn't really smelled too bad now at all. It's kind of in the nose at this stage and has kind of blocked everything up, and so all I can smell is dead elephant actually, and I've gotten quite used to it. No, Rebecca, no dishcloth with deodorant. That was Conrad that asked for that, and he didn't get it, but he did survive. So Conrad at times was kind of a bit green around the gills, but he handled himself like a champion. And exactly, Rebecca, he's a fighter and a champion. And so, actually, Conrad is seriously a fine fella, and he did a really good job with all of this. It's not easy to get these things installed when you're climbing up a tree full of vulture droppings and it's getting all over you, and it's really not a very pleasant experience. So he did a good job. So Penny Pine, difficult to say. I think hyenas probably have got the best shot of getting to the brain first, although you'll have a situation where vultures and beetles and all kinds of flies, in terms of maggots, are going to try and get in there first. Now, Brent and I, when we were here earlier, had a really good look at this carcass. We got up nice and close, and we were trying to just kind of see what was happening in there. And we can see that they're trying to get to the brain, but they haven't quite got it right yet. You can see, look at this hyena, how it's digging in to the top of the head there. They're trying to get towards the brain, but they haven't quite managed it just yet. So the two of them are going to town on that top side, trying to get to all of those kind of fillets as well as the brain section as well. And they really are going crazy. Can you imagine what it must be like to put your head inside there? The smell and the claustrophobic feeling it must have when your head is deep inside a hot, sort of humid elephant carcass. I don't think it would be something that many of us would want to do, but hyenas look absolutely thrilled at the fact that they're able to do it. You can see they're even salivating a little bit from it. Now, very aware of what they're doing. You can see they're looking around quite a bit, and that's because any time you have hyenas feeding on a carcass, they know that at any point something like the Nkuhuma Pride, the Birmingham boys, the Avoca males, even a leopard could arrive here and could chase them. And so that's why they feed a little bit and then they pop their heads up so that they don't get caught off guard. Now, last time we had a dead elephant that I was at in the northern Sabi sands was near Chitwa airstrip. And there was a hyena that came in and was not paying attention, and it was eating and eating and eating and wasn't doing what these guys are doing by popping their heads up and having a look around. And it got stalked by the 4 Majingilans and didn't even see them coming. And the 4 of them grabbed it and killed it right next to the dead elephant. It was a pretty insane thing to see. And so we had a situation where we had a dead hyena, dead elephant, and then a very sick lion came along, and that poor lion also died. So we had dead lion, dead elephant, dead hyena in the exact same spot, and funny enough, the lion and the hyena did not get eaten at all. The elephant was picked clean, but the hyena and lion just bloated and bloated and bloated, and eventually they got... I actually don't even know what happened to them eventually. We stopped going there because the smell was just so putrid after a while that we just left it alone, and the vultures and the hyenas all abandoned that area. But it was a crazy thing to see. Now, I believe that I've got a few little issues with my audio again on Jigga. It's probably because of how warm it is. And so while we sort this out, let's send you back across the bridge and those yawning lions and see if they're thinking about getting up.
And it is hot indeed. Hopefully Tristan can sort out his audio quite quickly, and we'll be back. Now, isn't this amazing? So we haven't moved a muscle, and the lions have moved closer and closer to us. So I don't want to move the car to disturb them. You can see they're completely relaxed, and as long as we stay completely relaxed, everything will be perfectly fine. And I must say, this is one of my happy places, this close to big cats, and so nice to be back with the Nkuhuma Pride. Now, I think I'm setting up shop here for the afternoon. I think this is definitely a patience game. With the lions being that hungry, there's a very good chance they're going to hunt this evening. So if you want to see all sorts of fascinating things, you've got to be able to do the time with the flat cat. And if I had to work out how many hours over my life I've spent with flat cats, it would work into months, if not years. But I say I not much. Well, wouldn't really want to be anywhere else. It is just wonderful to be sitting right next to a pride of lions. And we're sharing the shade because it is blisteringly warm today. And you might notice that Tristan and I are looking a bit red, redder than usual. And that's or more red than usual. It's because we forgot sun cream when we went out to put up that camera, so we got a little bit of a sunburn, but we'll be okay. Fortunately, I think we'll survive. Oh, can you hear that bird calling? Must be one of the last Leveland's cuckoos of the season. They'll be leaving quite soon, heading north up to the Sahel. This little guy is so fidgety. He's itching and then licking one of the lionesses, and he's chewing on some grass. Now he's going to lick his backside. Now, for those of you who've jumped on a little bit late, we're wondering about how old this little lion, male lion, will start, what age he'll start hunting at. Addy, it depends. For anything from about 2 years, but still from that age, he's often more of a hindrance than a help. But from about at 3 years, they can be actually very useful when it comes to taking down large prey like buffalo. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it is 11. I thought I miscounted a bit earlier. I just had a quick look. But, yeah, so anything from 2 years is going to be strong enough to be useful. But what often happens is patients let the little males and the little females down, and they often give away the position of the lions during the hunt. And then anywhere from 3... he could be pushed out of the area, depending. Now, with current lion climates at the moment, and we're not quite sure what's going to happen, because the Birminghams, of course, did not hang around. They disappeared down south after coming up, roaring at the Evokers, and the Evokers didn't go that far. They just moved a little bit further than they were, and have now moved back down to the east, and sort of in prime Birmingham country at the moment, in Buffelshoek. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Fortunately for the Nkuhumas, in this section of Djuma, at the moment, they're about as far away as they can get from the Evokers while staying on Djuma. So long may they stay here. The Evokers can go fiddle around down in the east. Oh, she looks like she's enjoying that. A little bit of loving. Now, these little tender moments between lions are very, very important. and especially in a pride that's under pressure like this. So they're very hungry, so if they do catch something, particularly something small, it is going to be an absolute bun fight for that food. So these little tender moments that the lions share, it's called allo grooming. It helps reaffirm the pride bonds and make sure everyone will get on after they forget all their table manners around a carcass. Now, it's a question we get asked very, very often. Chris, are we not worried that we're going to be attacked because we're so close? No, Chris, I'm not worried at all. Not in the absolute slightest. I've been lucky enough to do this for a very, very long time. I've grown up in the safari industry and have been sitting next to lions since I was a small child, which I'm very, very lucky. Now, if you understand lions and understand their behavior, and if you know how to drive around them and you drive carefully around them, there's no need for them to attack me. Now, each different individual pride of lions can be different. Each area can be different. Depends on how much exposure they've had to safari vehicles, if they've been persecuted by people before. And just as simply how you drive towards the lions can make a big difference on how they react to you, how loud you speak, how your voice... you have a small child on the car, all those type of things can make a very big difference. But as you can see, these lions have no intention of trying to jump in the car. This car smells like diesel and oil and brake fluid, and they don't really see that there's an actual human being. However, if Sebastian and I were to stand up, especially this close, what would probably happen is the lions would run away, but at this proximity, there might be a chance that one of them might give a warning charge. You can see they're very jumpy. The one jumps up and they all jump up. And that was the young male who caused that. And that's, of course, because of all the shenanigans going on with the evoker males at the moment. Shame, girls, you are not looking in your best condition. So that wound is healed incredibly well. For what it was. I remember Tristan sending me pictures of it while I was in Kenya, and it's incredible how resilient these big cats are to wounds. So as you can see, I'm not very worried about them jumping in the car. Well, actually, I'm not worried at all. Now, as I was saying, there we go, that's what I was saying. If I stand up, however, they might attack or run away. But again, that is very, very unlikely. They would normally run away, and that's because they might recognize the upright figure of man, and man's the dominant diurnal predator. As you can see, they're literally going to surround us if they keep up at this. Now, Taylor's down in the east of... Oh, sorry, I just heard something there. Sorry, I got completely sidetracked by a bird call. Taylor's down in the east of Chitwa looking for Kachava.
I think it's pretty cool, Brent, to be able to say that you can't move, you can't leave because you're now surrounded by lions. I bet everybody's envious and wishing that, well, they were in the same position as you. Now, we've been driving around on Chitwa, battling all sorts of signal gremlins this afternoon, and we haven't really seen much just yet. I don't know why, though. It's the most beautiful day. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. It's not too windy. It's really nice. I thought we would have got towards Chitwa airstrip and we would have seen lots of impala, maybe the wildebeest that lives there, and all the other animals, but that's not the case just yet. So what we will do is we're going to turn right back onto Gari Main, and we're going to just do a quick check and check some of Kuchava's favorite spots to see if she has crossed back on the property, or see where she's been hiding. And if no luck, then we will start to go down towards the dam. So that's the plan for now. We've barely even seen any birds this afternoon. I can't actually believe it. But watch, I say this now, and hopefully we'll get some more birds. Maybe we'll even get some more dwarf mongoose sightings. That would be quite nice. So we'll definitely try and find some of them. So this section over here, she's been enjoying quite a bit. Absolutely loving this eastern corner in Chitwa. And then this sort of section in Torchwood as well. Now, there are not many people that drive around in Torchwood, so I bet she has the best time ever. All on her own. We know that Kuchava's not the most relaxed Sabi sand leopard, but she will get there. The more and more encounters she has with vehicles, the better it's going to get. So there's a car behind me. I'm going to pick up the pace. I should quite easily be able to see leopard tracks scooting along the ground over the sand. We'll turn off right in a minute, I promise. Rebecca at one point tried to give me directions because I said I don't know where to go this afternoon, but the directions that she gave me would have led me into Simbambili, where I can't drive. So we decided not to follow her directions. It's coming. Where are you, road? Also check, because she loves to sit on the termite mounds. There's so many mounds up and around in this area. It's really spacious. This is taking longer than I expected us. I think I see. No? Right? Okay. Off you go back across to Brent to see if he's still got those cats surrounding him.
Welcome back. Unfortunately, it seems like Taylor hasn't managed to get rid of all her gremlins just yet, so you're back with us and our sleepy Nkuhumas that are slowly but surely surrounding us. Now, as you can see, that a lot of the lions are starting to get quite a lot of tattiness around the ears, CNAC, so it is very difficult to age lions, because we just looked at the young male whose ears were quite tatty, and he, we know, is only about a year and a half. So no, it is not a reliable, in most parts of the world, it is not a reliable method to age lions with. So I know teeth are probably the most reliable way to age lions as a general rule, but of course it's sometimes quite difficult to see their teeth, and so when lions are darted and stuff like that, then yes, they are. That sometimes you'll measure their teeth, have a look at their teeth to see if they have been broken, or I know you can age lions from their teeth, but it is quite difficult, and I am definitely no expert in that. When I arrived at Djuma just over 3 years ago, the Nkuhumas were also going through quite a tough time, and it was at the beginning of sort of the Birmingham invasions, not when they were in full flight just yet, but at the beginning of those invasions, and before the sort of main takeover happened, an Nkuhuma lioness was killed in Buffelshoek, if I remember correctly, and then there was another adult female killed in Torchwood, and we actually went and had a look at that carcass. And then that sub-adult female was killed in Simbambili. Oh, head up. So as the sun moves, they've got to move, and they keep moving closer and closer to us. Let's see what she does. Apart from having a little scratch under the chin. Here comes the yawn. Are we going to flop down and decide we can last 5 more minutes in the sunshine, or we're going to get up and move into the shade? Now, the arch nemesis of the lions, apart from other lions, is hyenas, and it looks like one's just arrived at the elephant.
They are indeed, and they are tearing into this carcass a little bit. So all the vultures went flying off, and we had a a whole bunch of alarm calls for francolins very close by, and the hyenas all kind of got a bit scared, so we moved a little bit to investigate, and can't see anything at this stage, but maybe Hosana is hanging around still somewhere in this area, and maybe he's just creeping about on the fringes, and that's why we can't see him. But the hyenas are significantly worried that they keep kind of trotting off and then looking down towards Twin Dam. So I wonder if maybe something's lurking in Twin Dam's area, and that's why the vultures all took off, and the situation the hyenas are a little bit worried. But you can
Sorry about that, everyone. It seems like Tristan is fighting off some audio gremlins, and you can see our little lioness has decided to move into the shade, but she's going to eat a little bit of grass first. Now, it's not uncommon to see the big cats doing that, particularly when they are hungry and not in the best condition. So hopefully they can fill themselves up on a big buffalo this evening, because they are not looking well at the moment. And it's always amazing how lion pride, especially ones that are followed for a very long time, how you're able to watch the sort of ebb and flow of their lives from being in absolutely mint condition. Just think about probably back to about 2 years ago, these lions were just absolutely gorgeous. There wasn't a major nick or scar, just the sort of normal little scratches you would expect on lions. To before that, where they were looking completely bedraggled, and to now, where they're looking a bit bedraggled again. Oh, there we go, lion hug behind the bush. You're not very bright, little man. You've moved about 3 times since we've been here, if we go to the left a little bit, and the sun's already catching up with you again. Now, as I say, we've been discussing lions, of course, since we're sitting right next to lions, and you get some very large coalitions from time to time, Patrick. 4 is a reasonable number in this area. Now, again, a lot of this type of stuff is area dependent, Patrick, rather than species dependent. So, in this area, it isn't very, very well known for large coalitions of male lions. So a lot of coalitions start bigger, and by the time they settle after the battling phase are smaller. For example, the Birminghams actually originally started as 5 males. One of the males was killed by a wound from a buffalo. Here we go, silly boy, you got to move again. He got a buffalo horn in the lung, and that caused him to lose condition and eventually die. So the largest coalition we've heard of was the sky bed males, and I think there were 9 of them. But coalitions of that size don't normally stay together forever. They normally split into sort of 4 and 5, or 3 and 5, or whatever, because 9 male lions would be undefeatable. However, it would be very difficult for all those males to keep well fed if they were all fighting with each other over carcasses. So it seems to be between 4 and 5 is the sort of standard number for big male coalitions in this area. Sometimes you have 2, sometimes you have 3, and it all depends. As I say, most of them start off around that 4 or 5 number, and over the years, the battles and whatnot, they end up losing 1 or 2. Very flat cats. Oh, that is a very, very interesting question, Jason. Are lions able to smell fear? I don't believe so. I think lions are instinctive animals. I don't think they smell fear. They read body language. So what often happens is that, and if you ever have to walk on foot into lions, which we do from time to time, the most important rule is whatever you do, don't run. If you run away, lions will instinctively chase you. But if you stand still and shout at them and charge at them, the lions often get confused and run in the opposite direction. So I don't think they smell fear, personally. I think they read behavior, and if you behave like a prey species, then they'll treat you like a prey species. Now, of course, that is during the daytime. At nighttime, you are a prey species. You don't walk around this part of the world at night, because if a lion does find you, it is going to eat you. I'm surprised how long Amber Eyes has managed to survive the sunshine without getting up and moving into the shade. Oh my goodness, Rebecca. I've just had a comment from Final Control that makes me want to hang my head in shame. And that is, she's blonding her fur. So, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. But, well done, Rebecca. Blonding her fur. What nonsense. I'll never. And I think at the moment, the girls are not too worried about their looks, but far more worried about survival. Now, that herd of buffalo, as I said, this morning was probably only about 150 meters from here. I'm not sure how far they've moved during the day. Hopefully not too far. So I'm wondering if the Nkuhumas are going to get on their trail as it gets cooler this evening. Now we're going to delve into one of my favorite subjects of all, and that is human interaction with wild animals. And Eloise has sparked this conversation, so well done, Eloise. And Eloise has asked, how do people survive around lions? Well, Eloise, your ancestors, my ancestors, all of our ancestors had to learn how to survive around lions. Modern-day human beings and modern-day lions evolved into their current forms around the same time, somewhere between 200 and 400 or 500,000 years ago. And we shared the same ecosystem. So, at the end of the day, all people are Africans, as the origin of mankind happened in Africa, and we spilt out from there. And through a couple of different mass exoduses when there was land bridges between Asia and Africa, and then from there we spread and spread and spread and spread. And unfortunately we didn't stop spreading. We could have stopped spreading a little bit, but so lions and human beings have had a very long and interesting history. So that's why during the daytime lions will run away from you 99% of the time. Human beings are the dominant diurnal predator, and a group of men can kill lions during the day quite easily, also due to the fact that lions struggle to deal with heat. So if you can push lions enough and get them to raise their core body temperature, you can actually run up and stab them quite easily, as the Maasai people have done up until the recent times. So, if we can chase lions during the day, we can chase most animals during the day, and most animals are scared of us during the day, even the great elephant bull. And that means we had to have a time where we weren't dominant, and lions evolved to become the dominant nocturnal predator. There's that little creeping sensation that comes in at the back of your neck as the sun starts setting. And even if you're living in New York City or Miami or LA, London, Moscow, St. Petersburg, Beijing, Calcutta, I'm trying to think what other cities, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, you want to go home when it gets dark. Now, modern humans, to a degree, have started to lose a little bit of those instincts. Not the ones who live out here. I guarantee you that those instincts are still quite strong with us. You want to go home when it gets dark. Now, that is actually a remnant instinctive response in human beings, because at the end of the day, you must remember we are also animals, and we do have instincts, and we rely on those instincts without even realizing it sometimes. So that. Am I sitting on my radio? I might be sitting on my radio. I apologize if I am. Yes. Oh, okay. I was sitting on my radio. Apologies. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. That little tingling feeling that makes you want to go home. And that's a remnant. Well, it's not a remnant. It's an instinctive response. Because you know, without knowing, that when it gets dark, you're not the boss. Danger lives in the darkness. The lions can see 7 times better than we can. And when they will run away from us during the day, at night, we are just part of the food chain and they will eat us. And that is why human beings like to go back to their cave, or in these days, houses or apartments, to get away from the potential danger. And it's not only lions, it was bears, it was hyenas, there were saber-toothed cats at that time. So very, very interesting. Now, there's a lot of different theories around, and one of the more interesting theories for me... What are you looking at, little lioness? What are you looking at behind us? Is there an impala or something unsuspecting wandering this way? I can't see anything. Nah, she's given up now. And one of the more interesting theories is about modern-day humans, lions and hyenas, because we all evolved around the same time. And we are what we are because of each other, because of those interactions, those interactions between us and even our ancestors before that. A lot of our behavior, defensive mechanisms, as well as lions and hyenas' behaviors and defensive mechanisms were caused by each other. Oh, her claws are out. Is she behind the bush? I should put them away. She was having a little stretch of the claws. It was quite scary. That's why you want to be home when it's dark. Otherwise, you can feel them sinking into your shoulders, and then crunch. And that's all she wrote. But so there's very interesting stuff with, and if you look at the evolution of human beings and predators, as we played a big role in how each other evolved. Oof, we're going to have to try to do what the lions are doing, Seb. The sun's catching up with us. Okay, so we're going to do what the lions are doing, and we're just going to move slowly into the shade, just like they've been doing next to us. So while we do that, Taylor's back at the Chitwa Waterhole.
We are almost back at the waterhole. I'm just quickly going to herd the Egyptian geese back in. In you come. Go to the water. Some are going that way, some are going this way. Where are the baby orcas? No? No baby orcas? That's the Egyptian goose goslings. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, they look like baby orcas. It's quite cool. Ever since that was mentioned, I cannot look at them any other way. Okay. There is a little 3-banded plover. I like watching the 3-banded plovers. They're quite funny. Oh, Snappy! Go, Snappy, go! Look at it! Oh, that's so funny. Look at the blacksmith lapwing. What are you doing? Just sitting down. Is that where your eggs are? It wasn't making any sounds, as if it was going to mob it. But let's see if Snappy gets up and starts moving again. I wonder if that blacksmith lapwing will follow. Like they're just mimicking one another. But they're quite big now. They must be... Are there eggs there, Craig? I think there might be a nest there. If it stands up again, we've all got to look very, very carefully at that blacksmith lapwing. Oh, it's so hard to see because those eggs are also camouflaged. But I reckon, though, if there were eggs, it would have been shouting like they typically do all the time. But that's so cool. This little crocodile is going to grow up very quickly, especially in the first couple of years of its life. No, maybe there's no eggs. And every time I see them, I feel like they've got a little bit bigger. Now, we know crocodiles don't need to eat all the time. But when you are this age, when you are only, I don't know, a couple of months old, maybe under a year, you're going to eat fairly regularly. And they're not feeding on big things. They'll be catching fish. They might be catching the odd bird, maybe an Egyptian goose, gosling. That would be a perfect meal for one of them. Other small crocodiles, even smaller ones. Lots of things. They eat a variety of different things. But I think they'd be feeding on a lot of fish here. I think there's plenty fish. Look how it's just keeping really low down to the ground now. What are you doing, blacksmith lapwing? Are you sitting on a nest or are you mocking this poor little crocodile? Because there's hippos as well. We'll get to the hippos a bit later. And quite funny. And I'm impressed to see this little crocodile still out in the open. Obviously they sunbathe just like the adults do. However, when you are that small, you run the risk of being snatched up by all sorts of predatory birds. I mean, my goodness. You know what? Snappy better be careful because if a family of ground hornbills, southern ground hornbills came through here, I don't think that they would leave this little guy alone. Now, he looks bigger than what he is on screen, but remember, blacksmith lapwing is not particularly tall. It probably is... how tall is a blacksmith lapwing? Maybe 25 centimeters in height? Let me have a look. Let's see if it tells me that on my bird app. So, it just goes to show, there we go, as you zoom out, you sort of get more realistic idea of how big Snappy actually is. Where are we looking? Lapwings. They've got very long legs. Let's have a quick look to see how tall a blacksmith lapwing is. It should tell me. Yes, 30 centimeters. So the height of one of those, and I would say Snappy is about 60 centimeters in length. So 2 rulers. That's not very big. There'll be a lot of big birds that would perhaps swoop down and get it. So you better be careful. But look at that amazing camouflage, though, on the sand. It is fairly well camouflaged. Now, I'm no crocodile expert by any means. I see them every now and then, but I must be honest, I haven't sat with them for a long time. Now, obviously, we always talk about how to ID individuals when it comes to leopards, lions, hyena, cheetah, you name it. Now, I don't know if you can do that with crocodiles. And Alara Moore, have you noticed anything? I suppose, unless, I mean, they don't have a spot pattern. Again, animals can become injured. So, like we know, Vladimir is missing the tip of his tail, or one of the ridges going down his back seems to have come off. Oh, hello, Snappy. You're opening your mouth now. Look at those sharp little teeth. Hey. I'm so tired. So, a la Ramon, you could probably use something like that. And, you know, it's fairly easy to identify the crocodiles of Chitwa Dam because there seems to only be two adults that we've seen. Boris, and then, of course, Vladimir. And Boris is just much smaller. Boris is actually a female, funny enough. So, yeah, so maybe they have unique markings on their bodies. I mean, you can see that Snappy's quite patchy. That coloration starts to change as they get older, though. They tend to be quite yellow when they first hatch. Look, I can't show you, but Ali is driving over the Chitwa Dam wall at the moment. She's helping me find this male leopard that we were tracking. Oh, I didn't even get to tell you, we were tracking male leopard. We had the tracks going round and round and round. So she's giving us a hand. Shall we go up a little bit further to see? I did see some little orcas on the banks. Ooh. Hello, Tesla, my favorite little friend. How are you? I hope you're well. It's nice to hear from you. How's school? Is it fabulous? Are you doing your homework? Are you listening to your mom? I hope so. I hope your brother Ben is also fabulous. I don't know why fabulous is today's word. Tesla, see how many times you can use it. Now, obviously we were discussing things that the dragonflies can eat. Tesla, I don't know if a baby crocodile would eat a dragonfly. I think a dragonfly may be too quick. Oh, no, did I miss that completely, Vex? Can I have it again? Oh, come back, goslings. Oh, did I get it right? Oh, what do I know? Okay, my bad. But there we go. Tesla answered your question. So I think they may be a bit too quick, unfortunately, for a little crocodile. However, an Egyptian goose gosling like this, that have now lost their coloration, they're losing their baby fluff and starting to get the adult feathers now coming through slowly, this would be a perfect meal for that young crocodile. It would actually be quite a big meal. And they've got 4 out of the 5. That's not bad going. The last time I saw them, I think they had 5 goslings. And there seem to just be 4 there. So that's all right. Just swimming out of frame. That's no problem. We can carry on. We'll see if we can find anyone else here.
Oh dear, the gremlins seem to be out and about today. Hello, lions. Yes, nice to see you too. Oh, they always manage to put themselves in some very strange-looking situations, don't they just? Okay, I just have to be on the radio for a second to help Aubrey get here. Sorry about that. And then I will be back to you. Of course, I have misplaced my gun drive radio somewhere underneath my binoculars. And radios have an amazing way of getting tangled in everything. Those squiggly... There it is. Station on Rebecca's coming. Sorry about this, everyone. I think they've spotted me. Yeah, they've spotted me. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I don't need to talk on the radio. Now, lion pride dynamics are very interesting, and they do change depending on whether you're a boy or girl, Neela. So females will stay normally. There are always exceptions to every rule. Females will normally stay within their pride for their whole lives, and only if a pride becomes very, very, very large, say over 30 or 40, then they will split and form sub-prides that will eventually become completely separate prides. But as a general rule, lions will stay with their natal pride for their whole lives. So that is a general. Young males, however, at 3 years old, need to set out and go find their way in the world. And they can travel as far as 100 kilometers away from where they were born. And during that period is a very interesting period for young male lions, because this little male, for example, is going to have a very tough time of it, because he's got to, hopefully for his sakes, find himself some coalition buddies who are going to be willing to accept him. If he doesn't, it's very unlikely he will survive through to adulthood and be able to claim a pride of his own one day. Now, while we continue to play the patience game with the Nkuhumas, let's go across to Madam McCurdy, who's looking at some feathered friends.
We are looking at the feathered friends because they actually seem to be staying around today, so might as well take advantage of it. But here we have a great egret. Beautiful birds, very tall, very easy to identify because they've got just plain black legs, whereas the little egret has got yellow feet, and the intermediate egret has got, well, half yellow, half black legs. And an interesting fishing technique that it's taken up, perched on a branch. So I suspect it's taking advantage of the deeper water. Now, obviously, these birds can't swim like ducks and geese or little grebes, so it needs to perch itself on a bit of vegetation if the water is too deep, and we know that it's fairly deep down in the middle of Chitwa Dam. But because there's a tree there, you'll find that there'll be a lot of fish, again, coming and around, swimming around it, using the shade, that the shadow that's being casted by that dead tree. And also there'll be a lot of algae and things growing on that tree, so maybe some of the fish that will feed on algae and stuff like that will come through and eat it. So just taking advantage, which is quite cool, because typically we see egrets walking along the shallow waters and chasing their prey. Sometimes they stand still and fish too. Sometimes they even use the hippos to their advantage when they bob up and down in the water, and they'll basically fish in the wake of the hippos, but not today. Today, and actually most of the other times I've seen this egrets, has been to take up this sort of position. And if you watch for long enough, I bet we'd see it catch a fish too. And they eat not just fish. I mean, these herons, these egrets are quite big. They're as tall as a grey heron. So we get to watch one on the dam cam quite regularly at Vulture Dam, so you all know how relatively well how big a grey heron is. So they're about the same size and height. So they would also go for newly hatched crocodiles, and that's something that they would eat. They eat insects, they eat frogs. And then there's somebody else perched on that stump, which you may have spotted a little bit earlier, and that, of course, is the pied kingfisher. One of my favorite species of kingfishers and a frequent visitor here at Chitwa Dam. Perfect spot. Also, sitting up in the shade, this kingfisher's name must be Brent, sort of chasing after the shade. You also may have seen the reflection of that egret as it sort of struck at the water, but no luck. Unfortunately, kingfisher doing the same thing, waiting to see some movement of fish fairly close to the surface of the water, also relieving itself, getting rid of that extra baggage. And perhaps it's seen something. Maybe it's going to bomb dive straight into the water. And the nice thing about kingfishers is that when they do bop down, is they normally come back up to the same perch. Well, most of the time. Anyways, I wonder how successful kingfishers are. Let's say the ones that typically feed, permanent water source. So pied kingfishers, giant kingfishers, and the ones that we'll normally see here. And then, of course, you can see the pygmy and even the malachite. They like it. Malachites will do a bit of both. Eh? They eat insects too. So do the brown-hooded. Brown-hooded predominantly feeding on insects, as well as the woodland. So the ones that we see mostly at Chitwa Dam are the giant and the pied. But I wonder how many times it takes them to hit the water's surface before they catch something. I suppose that would also depend on how much food is available for the fish and the frogs within this dam, because that, of course, would bring more and more and more of them around. I don't actually know the answer to that one. What is the difference between an egret and a heron from Rhyzyga? They're fairly similar. I'm not actually sure what differences they sort of have. I mean, they've got a very similar beak structure. They've also got very long legs. They can fly. They use very similar nesting habits. The same sort of snake-like neck that they shoot out. Very similar fishing habits as well. I'm not actually sure exactly what the technical differences are. I wish I had my massive bird book with me. I don't like to bring that out because it gets damaged over here. But for me, I mean, just looking at them, to me they don't look like herons. Egrets are typically white in color. What we can see, we don't really have any white herons. Not that we get here. I don't actually think there's any white herons in the world. Maybe there are. I'm just trying to think. My brain is thinking, what would the differences be other than just sort of what they look like? Craig, do you know the answer? I mean, they look so similar. just egrets, white, typically with yellow, some form of yellow on their beaks. And then the herons that we see are typically grey in colour. We've got some dark markings on them. The Goliath heron obviously has a bit of sort of a rusty colour on them too, which we see every now and then. We don't get to see them very often though. Then you get the smaller heron species, like the greenback herons, which look absolutely nothing like the egrets or the bigger herons. So quite interesting. We'll have to do a bit of research here. I'm pretty sure I forgot this answer. It's just in a filing cabinet somewhere that I've forgotten about it. But I'll have a look at my massive big bird book when I get home. Right, off you go to Tristan. It seems as though he's managed to beat off the gremlins this afternoon.
Well, hopefully we have a situation where Jigger's going to behave itself now and we'll be able to keep our audio working. Just gets hot and then we have to go and find a shady spot and wait until it cools down. Anyway, we're still with our carcass. The vultures are back and numerous hyenas coming in and out, and it's amazing to watch the social dynamic between these animals. You'll find that they come in. Ooh. There we go. A bit of vulture chasing. It's always a good pastime for a hyena that's not exactly full just yet. When they get, the fuller they get, the less they chase the vultures around. But there's been a number of individuals that have come in here that seem to be very low ranking. They've got tatty ears and they kind of crouch down and they tuck their bums in as though almost like if wild dogs were around and biting them on their bum. And they just kind of make these low little groans as the others feed. So it's a really interesting kind of behavior that you're seeing from them. And there's a total 4 different hyenas that are around at the moment. And then there's lots of francolins still making noise all over the place. And the hyenas keep looking in the direction of those francolins. Now, you see, why did they just run? Oh, I think they got a... They all just got a fright because a hyena just emerged from the stomach cavity of this elephant, and I don't think any of them knew it was in there. So all the other hyenas bolted because they saw something creeping out of the stomach cavity. So there's the individual culprit for making everybody get a bit of a panic and running off. I'm sure they'll all come back once they realize it's a hyena and not something to worry about. I think they probably thought maybe a lion was about to crawl out of there, and that's why they all went running off in fear of what was going on. So, Debbie, the skin is really not going to soften at all, in fact. Even though the carcass is going to get older, the skin is in fact going to get harder and tougher. And the reason for that is that it's going to get drier. So I don't know if you've ever put a piece of sort of meat or in the sun. The outside of it starts to get this very dry sort of feel to it. And the skin of an elephant will just get drier and more tough as it goes, and almost like a piece of leather. And funny enough, earlier when the hyenas were feeding, you could actually hear them kind of trying to move the ear, and the ear's got this now very dry sort of sound to it. It's an interesting sound. It almost sounds like sandpaper kind of being pulled about. So it's just going to get drier and tougher and harder to actually break down because all the moisture is being sucked out of it. The more sun is on it, the more it kind of... You can tell there's a young hyena. Sorry, I was just watching this young hyena getting scared of the vultures. So every time a vulture takes off, it gets scared and runs away. But you'll find that it's going to be harder and harder as that moisture is leached out of it due to the sun. It just becomes basically dried. It's like anything. You can dry any type of food item if you just leave it in the sun for long periods of time. But look at that, you can see big bits of sinew coming out now. So what they've done is, funny enough, when I went round the other side, is that they've actually gotten in now towards the sort of cheekbones and shoulder blades. That's where they're going. They actually haven't gotten to the brain yet. The brain is still in there. You can see the vultures have pecked a few times at the brain and the skull itself, and they're trying to get in there, but they just don't have the power just yet to get it right. So we're going to have to wait until these guys maybe crack an opening, or the beetles are going to have a field day and get to the brain before the hyenas do. So here comes another one. Now this looks like one of the lower ranking individuals. You kind of see its ears, how they drooped. You see how it's turning its body sideways, and it's kind of very, very submissive. Every time another hyena comes towards it, it just crouches a little bit and just kind of presents itself sort of as in lower shape and tries to keep its head down as much as possible so as not to be bullied by the others. But you can see, sometimes you think that there's only one hyena left, and then all of a sudden another one pops out. So in total, I can see 3 there now. I don't know where the rest have gone. There might actually be more coming. I know Taylor told me that last night at one point because she was kind enough to bring some of the staff from FCE and all of the rest to come and see what was going on here. And she was telling me that there was, at one point, close to 30 of them all over the place here. So it's very, very interesting. Now, the other interesting thing about this is that this morning I purposely drove around this carcass when looking around just to see what was going on from a point of view of the hyena tracks and where they were going. And I found a vast majority of the tracks going in and out of Hofmans. So they're literally coming up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, to the point that the entire area was just completely kind of hyena tracks. It even had completely erased all the lion tracks. And then there's the other sets of tracks that we're seeing are the ones that are going into further north and are going into the drainage line between Rebecca's and Philemon's cut line. There's a lot of movement in that area as well. So I don't know quite what's going on. I think the males are spending a lot of time up on the sort of Rebecca's, Zoe's, Philemon's cut line block. And then I think that Pretty and Corky and maybe even Madam are still south in Hofmans, and I think that's where they've got their den, because the number of tracks going in and out of there would suggest. Now wait, let's see if we can listen to that ear moving. Difficult to hear it now, but it's making a very sort of stiff sound, and you can also see that the ear itself, when they get in underneath it, it's not floppy anymore. It's now become almost like a board. It's this kind of hard piece of skin that doesn't really flop too much. It's more kind of stiff in its nature. So Joshua, a lot of damage has been done to that carcass today. It's going to be interesting, but I think that probably we'll find that maybe another 3 days. So Brent said 5 days. I reckon he's pretty spot on with 5 days. That's about how long I would say as well. Now, I'm just trying to think how long we've had it for. How long have we had it for? 3 days already. 2 days. 2 full days, I think, is what we've had it for. And so I reckon 5 days would be about a good guess. The vultures have done a lot today around the back end, and so it's going to kind of take a bit of time now, because what they've got to do now is they've got to feed through the front of the head, and then they've got to go through the 2 legs on the top, and then they can start getting to the bottom side of this carcass and all the meat that is on the other side. The other thing they haven't even remotely touched just yet is the trunk that is completely whole, and that's because it's caught underneath the head at the moment. So Sinak, the carcass will be purely bones, probably. I mean, obviously there's going to still be bits of meat on there for a while longer, but I would say maybe in 7 days, 8 days, the bones will be pretty clean. There'll be very little left on it. You'll be talking 5 days until most of the meat is off it, and 7 to 10 days, and it will be completely picked clean. There'll be very little left, and bones will be scattered. You can see though the tusks are still in there, and we kind of went and had a little look today just to see kind of how loose they are, because that's why they're still in there, is that they kind of, the Sabi sands waits for them to get a little bit looser before they can extract them, and they are getting looser. They're starting to kind of feel like they're almost ready to come out. I would give it maybe another 3-4 days, and then they should be able to be pulled out of the head itself, and from there they'll then go and get registered and stamped, and DNA taken from them, and all kinds of other things to make sure that they are not sold on and are not put into an illegal system or into the black market in any way. And so it's going to be all sorted out from there. It's amazing how hyenas are so curious around this. Now, just now, earlier when we were doing the camera story, we had to come in and we had to kind of adjust cameras and all that kind of thing. And hyenas, funny enough, did not even move. So the distance from the camera to that carcass is probably, I would say, 5 meters at most. And even out me on foot, the hyenas just all stood at the carcass and just watched me. They weren't even in any way perturbed by my presence. They just kept feeding and were not interested in me kind of moving around there at all earlier today, which is pretty crazy to think. So it just goes to show, when there's a big meal, they're kind of not really worried. If it had been a normal situation, you would have found all of them would have run away from me, but in this situation they were just happy to feed while I did my business, and once we were finished they then kind of carried on and didn't even pose any threat. Dola, the trunk is not being eaten because it's stuck under the head. So when this poor elephant fell, it must have died standing up, and when it fell down, the trunk unfortunately caught underneath the head itself, and so there's only a little bit of the trunk that's actually exposed, and the skin's still too thick in that area for them, the vultures, to get into. And the hyenas have been trying to target the innards and all the juicy big chunks of meat, and then they'll start to get to the trunk itself. So it's going to probably be, I would say, maybe tomorrow or the next day we'll start to see that trunk being eaten. But normally they start with, when they eat an elephant trunk, they start right at the tip of the trunk where it's the softest and the easiest to start feeding, and then they go up from there. So it's just that it's caught underneath at the moment, and that's why it's going to take a bit of time for them to actually get it. It's an amazing thing to see, because this poor animal must have been literally clinging to life as much as it could, and was standing and trying to just dust itself and trying to stem the flow of blood, and then eventually unfortunately just fell over and died, probably from blood loss or damage to its internal organs, and the whole thing just collapsed, and its tusk is buried into the ground and the trunk kind of underneath that. So it's really a very kind of sad thing. Now we'll stay here for the remainder of the afternoon. There's still lots that could potentially happen. A lot of hyenas still around, and maybe Hosana arrives, or even Tingana. It would be nice to see Tingana being here. In the meantime though, let's send you back across to Taylor with a group of little piggies.
Tristan, don't you dare call me a little piggy. No, I'm joking. Here they are. Hi, little piggy. I think they're going to come out onto the road. What my goal is here, actually, you'll remember these warthogs. These are the same warthogs we had just after the hysterical mongoose sighting. See, Craig, they're going to walk out in front of us now. And I'm trying to figure out where their burrow is, because they're so relaxed. They don't mind that we're here. They've been wallowing for the day. See, there's the little one, the mediums. This is the small one. Off we go. Bye-bye, little girl. Here's another little girl, bigger girl. There's the three of them. Actually, we've seen them a lot, and it's nice that we get familiar with warthogs. Well, I suppose we've got Wilbur, who is the warthog that lives at the pan just off Gowrie Main on Chitwa, which we see a lot. He's the one with no tufts of hair on his tail. And then these three. So we're going to follow them down the road and see where they take us, because I reckon it'll be quite cool to get there early in the morning and see if we just park a little bit of a distance away, if they'll wake up and come out the hole gracefully for us. That could be quite nice, don't you think? Look at them. Just little hooves, moving very slowly along the road. Careful now. Yes, there might be leopard tracks there. And I don't want any of you to be eaten by leopard. Trot, trot, trot. Trot, trot, trot. Look at them. Now you can actually see the false hooves quite nicely. So, once on the back of their hooves, it looks like they've got extra toes. And when they leave their tracks behind, you don't normally see them in the soft sand, but when they walk through mud, you can spot them. And then it's quite easy to identify if you've got a warthog. Right, let's keep following them though. Off we go. I got something in my eye. I don't know, it may be sunscreen. That wasn't very clever. Where's my pirate patch? I must be the most unluckiest person when it comes to my eyes. Although I take after my mother. My mother also had terrible issues with her eyes. Perhaps it's hereditary. Let's see, little pigs, where'd you go? There they go. No, don't run. Ooh, I think I can see their home. No, Rebecca, I will not be doing such a thing. Rebecca's asked me to basically sing, you know, this little piggy went to the market, but the bush version. Not today. There's a 2-track going in here. I'm going to follow the 2-track and the warthogs. Don't tell anyone, though. Keep it our little secret. This is a nice burrow over here, but again, there's so many termite mounds on Chitwas. On Chitwa. There's just one Chitwa. There's only one. Don't know why I needed to make that a plural. Where'd they go? No, they didn't go for this one. They've given us the slip. The 3 little piggies. Oh, there they go. Down there. Where are you guys going? Now they're getting a little bit nervous, as you can imagine. When I'm off-roading, I'm going over a couple of unfavorable bits of vegetation. And that might make them a little bit nervous, so they're trotting along. So all of them gone now. Right. Yeah, right. Well, we'll see if we can follow them, because I would like to find out where they live. So off you go to Brent, and hopefully those lions don't come this way.
Well, someone else who might want to know where the warthogs live is this pride of lions, particularly because they are so hungry. Now, the two that have been furthest from us the whole time, sort of hidden, have started waking up with a little bit of allo grooming, and it is good to see. It means there's a potential for a bit of movement a little bit earlier than I thought they were going to move, and that's why I say it is probably because they are so hungry. Normally in this heat, if they had a bit of a belly on them, they would not think about feeding. Isn't that pretty, with the herringbone grass in the foreground and the lovely late afternoon light catching it? Now, the Nkuhumas can be quite a vocal pride, but I think at the moment they're going to be travelling incognito, and to try and not make as little noise as possible to not attract the attention of the vocal male lions. There we go. You can see the rest of the pride are still very much flat cats in the shade. And I'm hoping the heat of the day has caused the buffalo not to move too far, because they really could do with a good meal. Now, it is still quite warm, but the temperature is dropping ever so slightly. Oh, there we go, a little roll over. Roll over, little lions. Well, some of them are not so little, are they? What have you spotted, Seb? Ah, it looks like some little hooded vultures. They've obviously spotted the lions and have now descended down to try see if there is a carcass here. Now, hooded vultures, being the smallest of the vultures, are often outcompeted at the carcasses. So, can you believe it or not? You're not going to like this, but hooded vultures will often eat lion feces. If they're unable to find anything else, they will eat lion feces. And wild dog and leopard feces, hooded vultures. But I'm afraid, vultures, these lions are so skinny they ain't going to be much feces for you. Oh, big girl's up. That's a juvenile hooded with the brown head. One of the big females is up and heading in our direction. Now, in most predators, there is a sort of hierarchy or alpha system, Bridget, but amongst the lionesses, there isn't really an alpha system. All adult females of the pride are equal. There's no true one leader or boss or in charge. They all are equal and have sort of equal responsibilities, I would say. And often when it comes to hunting, it's whoever's the most hungry will lead the hunt, but I would say that all of them would be champing at the bit to lead the hunt at how hungry they are at the moment. Now, with male lions, it's a little bit different. There is most definitely a hierarchy amongst the male lions, and it is a completely ever-changing. So, certain I just heard something very funny on the radio. Certain lions, and I'm going to tell you about it now. It is hilarious. Let me finish about male lions quickly. So male lions, the dominance changes depending on who's the most well-fed, who's the most injured, etc., etc., etc. But I just heard something very funny on the Game Drive channel. As you know, Tristan has been at that carcass for quite some time, and he's gone around, he's looked there, and he's like, no, there's just hyenas, and there's just hyenas and vultures, and as he's been sitting there for quite some time, and now I heard on the radio one of the other guys driving in, and he says, Tristan, do you know about the leopard here? Tristan says, no, you're joking. And he said, no, Tristan, there's a leopard right here. He just said, no, I've been driving around here all afternoon, there can't be a leopard. So it sounds like Hosana might have snuck back to the carcass while Tristan's been waiting there. But Tristan's voice on the radio was absolutely priceless. It made me completely lose my train of thought. So I'll have to tell you more about male lion coalitions afterwards. Let's go see how... if Tristan's red in the face, and not only from the sun today.
I am red in the face from the sun, Brent, but I didn't catch anything of what you were saying because I wasn't actually listening to Rebecca because I was too busy having a look at our spotted friend Hosana. So he's been lying at the carcass obviously for a little bit of time, and we just haven't noticed him. He's kind of was behind it, and when Charles from Insinga on Buffelshoek came in, he said, did I know about the leopard that was lying here? And I said, no, I didn't know about the leopard. And so Hosana has been sitting, and we were saying that Franklins were alarm calling and the hyenas were looking in this direction, so he's obviously just found himself a little place to sit. And I wonder if he's been watching us when we installed the camera the whole day today. I'm surprised. Come and have a little look. But it's been really interesting kind of watching what's been going on with him over the last little bit, because he's kind of in a situation where he's not really feeding, but he's still very intrigued by this whole thing. That Hosana, probably this is the first time he's ever seen a dead elephant. You would never have seen a dead elephant before, and he's never probably tasted elephant, and so he's curious because of all the vultures, and he knows vultures and hyenas generally mean meat, and he can smell meat, but I think he's a bit overwhelmed maybe by the size of it, and that's why he's a bit kind of cautious of going in, because I don't think anyone's actually seen him feeding on this particular carcass just yet, and so maybe he's trying to kind of work it out and bide his time. But isn't it amazing now that we have access to this, so somebody can watch this 24 hours a day at some point when we go live with that camera, and we can see if maybe Hosana's sneaking meals when everybody else is kind of sleeping. That maybe is what's happening, and we're just not catching him at the right time. But it's pretty incredible that he's sitting here. I was hoping that, oh, look at those eyes in this light. He really does have incredible eyes. He's got eyes very similar to Lamula. It's got these kind of orange colors to them, and there he's going to just flop his head down. Shame boy, are you tired? Seems like he's a bit tired, and that he's had a tough day. Like I say, I wonder if he was watching. I mean, we walked all over the place here, so we didn't see him at all, and maybe he was just kind of watching us from afar. So Deborah, he is magnificent. He's truly growing into a spectacular leopard. Big, strong. He seems to be seriously witty, well, not witty, but clever in the way that he goes about his business. He's a very curious cat, but still seems to have a little bit of caution that allows him to kind of get away with things at this stage. And I was 99% sure that it was going to be him that was going to arrive at this carcass first, and I thought that his dad Tingana would also arrive here as well, so I'm still holding out hope for them. But when we discussed which cat would be the first one at this carcass, my bet was him, and it's because of his curious nature. I think he just saw vultures and probably heard squabbling and thought, well, I'm going to go and see what this is all about and go and get myself a little bit of the action and a front row seat as to what's going on. And so it's really been interesting to follow him, and the fact of the matter is he's becoming a spectacular individual. He's getting bigger by the day. He seems to be completely at ease with his sort of life at the moment, the way that he's moving around. He doesn't seem to be too kind of worried about all the ongoings around him, and it is an upside down leopard world that he's in at the moment. If you think about this time last year when he was a sort of panicked cub that had been left by his mom and was trying to find her and was struggling and trying to get just even the smallest of food items in the forms of terrapins and monitor lizards, to where he is now, where he's hunting big adult male impalas and at elephant carcasses and all kinds of other things. It's pretty insane to think. So it's amazing that he's a part of this and that he's kind of grown the way he has. And I really, really hope that whatever happens is that he ends up in somewhere where we can follow him. Hopefully still on our area where we can physically see him every day, but if not that, then just somewhere where we get regular updates on him, because whoever gets this leopard, if he doesn't stay here, is going to inherit a serious character and is going to absolutely, I'm sure, fall in love with him very quickly because of his nature and the way that he goes about things. So we are extremely lucky that we've had 2 years with this cat and have seen so many amazing things through him. And it seems to just continue. We seem to be learning a different side of leopards from him. He's got a bit of a different demeanor to a lot of our other males, and the curiosity and the sort of interest that he shows in so many different things makes him an incredible animal to follow and to kind of just document and watch and learn from. It's kind of changes a lot of what we believe in leopards, and his relationship with the others around him is really very interesting. I think that's probably the biggest thing with Hosana, is that he somehow manages to get away with just walking up to random leopards. I mean, we know we've seen him with so many different individuals, and he gets away with it. It's not like any of them have swatted him on the nose or gone very aggressive towards him. He seems to just somehow kind of charm them in some way, like he charms everybody else and all of us, I suppose. So he's got a very, very good demeanor about him, and an interesting. Kristen, mortality rate of a leopard of Hosana's age, difficult to say. It's infinitely better than what it was when he was 3 months old. As soon as he's able to climb and as soon as he was able to kind of start feeding himself, his mortality rate would have dropped right down. So for me, probably I would say, I mean, you never know. The lions could get him at any stage. You could have hyenas, you could have another leopard. Really difficult to say what could happen to this young male. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is. I don't think there even is a percentage of 2-year-old males that have died. Good. Now I'm going to leave. No, I'm not going to leave Hosana. Sorry, I was thinking of something else altogether. I don't know why. But I'm going to sit here with Hosana. And while I do that, let's send you back across to Brent to continue his conversation on alpha males.
Well, Tristan, you better not take your eyes off Hosana again. I wonder if he's been watching us the whole time when we were climbing in the tree. I actually had even leopard hair on my shirt when I was in that tree, so there had been probably Hosana in that tree at some stage. Now, I got completely derailed by the sound of Tristan's shocked voice over the radio when I was talking about the dominance in male lion coalitions. So unlike the females that are sort of they all get on there, there's no one that's more dominant than the other. Male lions are more dominant over each other, but the dominant male changes depending on which lion's got an injury, which lion's the most well-fed, which lion's the most aggressive at the time. So there is a hierarchy amongst male lions, but it is a constantly changing hierarchy, which makes male lion dynamics very, very fascinating to follow. You can have a male lion that's been dominant for a long time, but one injury can take that male from being on the top to being the bottom of the coalition. Now, of course, coalitions are known to kill female lions, JP, and the reason for this is when they come in, they're generally quite young, like the evokers, like the Birminghams were, like the Waterhole were. And the females that they kill will generally have sub-adults or cubs that they are trying to protect. And also in that young stage, and when the blood's up, so to speak, and the fight's going, I think they sort of have a battle lust almost, and they actually just lose control. I don't think they intend to always kill females, but sometimes a female will put up an incredible fight to try to defend the sub-adults or cubs in the pride. I love it when lions do that. And And what that does cause is those males, especially when they're sort of the blood's up, so to speak, the testosterone's up, they're trying to push older, generally more experienced males out of an area. So any form of defiance is often met with sometimes a bit too much force. As I say, I don't think it's intentional. They also are inexperienced in taking over an area. And after that initial sort of expulsion of the old males has happened, and it takes a bit of time for the prides to settle down and accept the new males and start breeding with them. And generally after that, it stops happening. Because the Birmingham boys killed 2 adult Nkuhuma lionesses and a young female. Now, a lot of you will hear us use terminology like sub-adult or juvenile. Now, a juvenile is probably what you would consider between 6 months and a year. After a year old, a lion is a sub-adult. Below 6 months is a cub. And a sub-adult stops becoming a sub-adult around 3 years old. In females, which is between 3 and 4 years old when they get their first estrus cycle and start becoming sexually active with the males, and that is when they become adults. Male lions, I suppose they're young adults from about 3, but they're not nearly in their prime. Like boys, they take a little bit longer to mature than the girls do. And the temperature is cooling off nicely, so we are hoping that these lions are going to get up and on the move in the not too distant future. But for the moment, they're looking like very comfy cats lying in the cool late afternoon shade. Now, let's go back to Tristan, who has not taken his eyes off Hosana.
Not at all. I've been looking for him, and I was just saying to Dave that he's been giving us the runaround. Yesterday afternoon he was nowhere to be found in this area, and now again, this afternoon it took us a while to actually find him. So keep my eye on him and make sure he doesn't disappear under our noses again. But it's so good to see him. He's such a cool animal, and he's just taking it very easy. He's very intrigued by all the ongoings at this elephant carcass. He's watching the hyenas going crazy and feeding, and I think he might be waiting for the hyenas to actually move on. You can see they sort of feeding now, and most of them have finished on that carcass at the moment. Most of them are done, and so there's just the 2 that remain at this stage. And I think once they leave, maybe Hosana might come and sniff around. It'll be interesting if he does. I wonder why he hasn't taken any bites of it or decided to have a little bit of a feeding session on the carcass. It seems like he would have just tried it at least. Maybe he did. Maybe he had a nibble, and elephant isn't for him. A bit tough and a bit smelly. He's obviously a fine diner these days. Hosana seems to be able to find food everywhere, and so maybe it's fresh rumps and fillets for him. Otherwise, he's not interested in having it at all. He seems to be a cat that just enjoys having the good stuff, the finer things in life. And why not? If you're able to get it, then he's certainly welcome to do so. But we were just talking about how this light just complements his eyes so much. He's got these beautiful orange eyes, and when he's got his head up like that, the light is just hitting them in the right angle at the moment, and it's just accentuating that color so much, and you're getting this beautiful, rich, deep orange that's shining through. Isn't that beautiful? I think so. I think that's as good as it gets when it comes to eye colors. And you can see when they go into the shade how they lose a little bit of that sort of saturation, if you want to call it, and the beauty in the eyes itself. Expect no, I'm not scared of all of these hyenas, like I say, and they're not very scared of me either, because I've been sitting here, like I said, and we were working on this earlier, and these hyenas were not in any way phased by us being around. They just decided they're happy to have the elephant carcass. They're happy with us being here. Elephant carcass is theirs, and as long as we don't go towards the meat, they're not too stressed about it, and they're not going to come after you as a person. They are not animals that have been taught to hunt us in any way, and so actually it's not really an animal that I fear at all. In fact, of all the animals out here, I actually really enjoy hyenas, and they don't strike fear into me in a way that I think they do a lot of other people. Maybe it's just because I've spent a lot of time with them, and there's so many interesting little bits with them, and they're not as aggressive as everybody always makes them out to be. They're not these marauding killing machines that wants to just rip everybody apart. They're sophisticated, clever individuals, and they are very, very calculated in the way that they go about their business. And so, I enjoy how they do things, and I don't really feel unsafe around them. And they're not going to just come to this vehicle and pull me out of the car and feed off me. And it's just not how hyenas work. They're actually far more scared of us than we are of them. And normally when they see a person, they'll try to run away. It's when people try and feed them and mess around with them, that's when you can get an issue. Now, Amanda, hyenas are most certainly aware that Hosana is here. They're very, very intuitive animals, and they've got a direct line of sight to Hosana. There's absolutely no branches in the way. So you can see from those hyenas, basically straight through like this. There's a straight line, there's not a single bush, and then Hosana is lying right there. So they're fully aware that Hosana is here. It's why earlier we were seeing them kind of looking in this direction and staring. They obviously were watching him kind of just sitting here and making sure that he's not too close. And they're not threatened by him because he's still a younger male leopard. He's not a massive brute of an individual. Also, there's 3 of them, or 2 of them versus just the one leopard. And so they know he's there, but they're not too stressed about it at all. And you can see Hosana's not very perturbed either. He's just sitting here enjoying kind of watching what's going on and seeing hyenas go about their business. But hyenas fascinate me. The amount of food that they can push into their stomachs. I mean, some of these hyenas have been feeding for an hour now, and they've just been absolutely gulping down big chunks of flesh. And I think poor Hosana's a bit jealous, and maybe he wants a little afternoon snack as well, and to try and kind of finish up what is inside there, and maybe there's a few fresher parts that are exposed that he can maybe get himself into. But amazing how much has been eaten since, like I say, since even we were here. The vultures must have got seriously stuck in this afternoon in the time that we went to the Gari repeater and then back to the camp and back out again, because that whole section where those hyenas are feeding now was all skin at the back, and even the leg itself has got a big split in it and lots of meat out of there, which wasn't like that. Now, I believe a lot of you have just joined us and are asking about the camera. So we installed a camera here at the Carcass, Brent, myself, and Conrad. And the reason we installed it is so that we can bring you this Carcass 24 hours a day, so you guys can watch it. It's not live just yet. It still needs a little bit of stuff done to it, and so we installed all the hardware and tried to get it up and kind of at least so that they can then do all the software side and all the sort of behind the scenes things to get it up and running. But essentially what's going to happen is there'll be a live camera that you'll be able to watch what happens at this Carcass even when we're not on drive. So that's the idea behind it and why we set it up. The camera is positioned just next to me. I will try and show you exactly where it is, and basically what we tried to do is to try and put a camera in that was not going to disturb the sighting in any way. It's not going to be in the way. It's also not going to be very visible for everybody else that has come to spend a bit of time at this sighting, because ultimately they don't want to see cables and batteries and all kinds of other things. And so what we've done is we've set it up so that it's pretty well hidden, and basically that's the situation. And so there is going to be a camera at some point. Now you can see Hosana slowly but surely stalking in. Hyenas are losing their nerve a little bit and are running away. Look, Hosana's kind of watching them as the hyenas go. So the hyenas have run quite far already. But even though they're probably strong enough to chase Hosana, he's just kind of watching them. And now we've got a bit of a Mexican standoff. Vulture, hyena versus leopard at this stage. And there is our leopard standing watching, and look at him, he's starting to get his little dewlap, getting big bulky shoulders, looking very, very handsome indeed. What have you spotted now, Hosana? Hosana looks like he's also spotted something. Look at the way he's perked up his whole head and is looking into the distance there. I don't know if it's maybe because some hyenas are running in that direction. I'm not sure. Interesting, there might be something else that's on its way, because he's definitely very, very interested in something that's walking somewhere in there. Now I know the last hyena sort of view of the hyenas I had was running in that direction, so maybe that's what he's seen, is just their backs bouncing through the bush. Yes, it is a hyena. I can see it now. It's just come out from behind. It's a very dark hyena. It's just straight through there where that car has just gone there. You can just see its ears moving every now and then behind that bush. Come on, hyena, come out now. You're not supposed to have stopped there. You're supposed to have come there. You can see it just on the left there, behind that tree. Yeah, right in there. So there it is. You can just see its ears. And that's the one that I was saying that's being picked on heavily by the others. It's got a bit of an ear missing, bite marks all over the place. And so it's really had a tough time over the last few days. I think being here means food, but also you're going to have to get a little bit kind of, beaten up by some of the other clan members that are around. What surprises me is that we haven't had any other clans arrive here. I was hoping somewhat that we'd see a little bit of a clan kind of dispute, and normally with big carcasses like that you start to see the hyenas coming in, and not from a point of view that I want them to fight, but just the audio when two clans meet is just the most insane thing. The noise that you get from hyenas when they meet each other, the whoops and the cackles and the sort of low howls that they do, is just the most incredible thing to be a part of. Now, Hosana, what's going on, boy? There's nobody at the carcass. You can go there if you want to.